Hail Internet, it's Matt here for the Dork Lords. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We do all manner of dorkly things here, so whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, superheroes, we probably have a playlist about it. Feel free to check us out. Today is another in our Dork Lord of the Rings segments. And this one is the Tale of Beren and Luthien. Quite a tale it is. Woof! It's not just a simple fairy tale. Tolkien's like, we're gonna spin this one out. Now, obviously, this is very important to Tolkien. As I think I've mentioned in previous videos, on the gravestone for he and his wife, it's got Beren and Luthien listed as nicknames for he and his wife. It's a very personal story for him. It's a romance, and it does have a happy ending. It doesn't seem like it's going to have one for a long time, but it does. And it's one of the central pillars of Tolkien's mythology. It's also very relevant to Lord of the Rings. If you remember, it's Aragorn who tells the tale of Beren and Luthien to Frodo in Fellowship of the Ring. And the reason that Tolkien has Aragorn tell this tale is obviously because Aragorn and Arwen are echoing the relationship between Beren and Luthien. Beren is a mortal man. Lúthien is an elf. She's actually even better than it. She's half elf, half Maiar spirit. And the Maiar are like these angelic beings. So her mother was a Maia named Melian. And then her father was an elven king, King Thingol. So she's half elf, half angel, essentially. And then Beren was a mortal man. So obviously the parallels to Aragorn being a mortal man and Arwen being an elf. In fact, I'll say this, I feel like this tale is going to be told one way or another in Amazon's Lord of the Rings series. As we know, Amazon's doing this Lord of the Rings series about young Aragorn. They're not going to pass up the chance to see his relationship, burgeoning with Arwen. Elrond, Arwen's dad and the foster father of Aragorn, he is Lúthien and Beren's grandson. So he's gonna see the parallels, and he's gonna tell this story. Now, what I kind of hope they would do in this series is maybe, because I'm about to show you, this story has its twists and turns. You could make an entire episode, or maybe even more, about the tale of Beren and Luthien. So it would be kind of neat if they did a flashback and just spend an entire episode showing the tale of Beren and Luthien instead of just telling a couple of lines and then moving on. It could certainly be a very engaging hour of television. So that's how it fits into Lord of the Rings. There's another way as well, which I'll get to. Okay, so let's set the tale here. Set the table. We're in the First Age, so a long time before the War of the Ring. Okay, War of the Ring's in the Third Age. We're talking First Age stuff. And at this point, we're going to take it to Morgoth. He's also known as Melkor. I like the name Morgoth better, so we're going to call him Morgoth. Morgoth has been held at bay for 400 years. The elves have cornered him in his fortress at Angband, and they've laid siege to him and kept him at bay. All right, well, one winter's night, Morgoth decides enough is enough, and he unleashes the Dagor Bragollach, the Battle of Sudden Flame. And it's called that because he just releases rivers of fire at the sieging elves and men. Just decimates huge amounts of elves and men, sends his monsters out, his hordes, and the orcs come out and they break the siege. In the act of breaking the siege, there's just chaos, armies going left and right. One of the armies sent in to assist is led by an elven king, Finrod. Finrod is Galadriel's, from the Lord of the Rings, Galadriel's brother. And he's leading an army, they're coming to help, they get ambushed. Looks like certain death for Finrod. Uh-oh, gonna die. But no, he is saved at the kind of the last minute by Beren's dad, Barahir. And Barahir, it's the House of Beor. Barahir saves Finrod's life. As a repay that debt, Finrod says, I owe you, I pledge myself to the House of Beor. And as a token of good faith, he gives Barahir a ring, a very special ring, very special for Lord of the Rings. It's the Ring of Barahir. It becomes the Ring of Barahir when Barahir takes it. So eventually that ring gets, as I'll show you, gets passed down to Beren. And eventually, thousands of years later, it comes to Aragorn. And that's the ring. The Ring of Barahir is the ring that Aragorn gives to Arwen to betroth himself to her. So it's that ring. This ring started with, a war where Morgoth's breaking out of Angband and ends up with, will you marry me? So, a lot of history for that ring. Okay, so Barahir has just saved Finrod's life. He's gotten this kind of a life debt from this elf. Barahir is obviously a human. The House of Beor, their lands are overrun by Morgoth's army. They're still doing a lot of damage. All that's left, really, of the House of Beor are 12 men. And they kind of go into hiding. They become outlaws. Now, obviously, it's Barahir and his son, Beren, and then some other heroes. And they are causing a lot of mischief. They attack Morgoth's forces when they can. It's kind of a Red Dawn situation. But they're active, and Morgoth would rather them be destroyed. So at some point, one of their numbers, Gorlam the Unhappy, he's one of those 12 men of the House of Beor. He goes off on his own. He returns to his house, his old house, and he sees in the house what he thought was dead wife. There she is. In the house. He goes in to see her. It's a trick. It's a trap. Sauron, Morgoth's chief lieutenant, has tricked Gorlam, captures him, and basically tells him, hey, if you give up where the outlaws that Barahir and his men are, I will let you be reunited with your wife. Gorlam tells him, and the reuniting is, she's dead, now you're dead. Hey, you're reunited. So, because it's kind of the worst end of that deal. But so does the rest of these House of Beor, because now they've been found out. As it turns out, it's while Beren is away scouting, the rest of the House of Beor are ambushed and killed off by orcs. Beren returns, finds his father is dead, and his hand has been cut off to take, basically the hand that had the Ring of Barahir on it has been cut off by an orc and taken away. Barahir tracks the orcs down, kills them all, gets the hand back, buries the hand with the rest of his father's body, keeps the ring. Obviously, the ring ends up with Aragorn, but he saves the ring. Okay. So now, though, he has nowhere to go. His house is destroyed. He's the last of the House of Beor. He's on the run, essentially, from Morgoth. He wanders into elven territory, and especially into the land of Lúthien's dad, King Thingol. He sees Lúthien out in the forest, is instantly smitten. They begin having secret liaisons. Because she is not allowed to hang out with a mortal man. That's a no-no in their society. But she's smitten with him. They have these little assignations, but they are turned in by Daeron the Minstrel. Jerk. Anyway, I don't know if he had the hat or not. We'll just say he had one of those jester hats. But Daeron the Minstrel was secretly in love with Lúthien, and it was unrequited love. So he's jealous. he sees her, he's kind of stalking her anyway in his own little creepy way, sees that she's meeting with Beren, this human, tells King Thingol, by the way, your daughter, not for nothing, she's hanging out with a human. Thingol's having none of it. Beren is brought before the court, and Thingol decides, I'm not just going to kill this guy. I'm not going to execute him or something. What I'll do is I'll just give him an impossible task that will kill him. Kind of like the labors of Hercules, right? So his version is, fine, you want to marry my daughter? You have at it. All you need to do is bring me one of the Silmaril gems that currently adorns Morgoth's crown. So Morgoth has this big iron crown. It's got 3 of these Silmarils on it. Incredibly valuable gems. The Silmarillion, it's named for these gems. I mean, these are the most. These are basically like having the the Infinity Gauntlets gems. So yeah, just go walk into Angband, hack one of the gems off of Morgoth's crown, bring it back to me, and you can marry my daughter. Well, Beren is like, done. He's not deterred at all. He's like, great, all right, well, there we go. That's, it's to him, it's like, go pick up a wedding cake. All right. So Beren sets off. Now, on his way, he makes a stop at his dad's old friend, King Finrod, the one who had the ring. Now, so he shows the ring at the court of King Finrod, says, look, you swore an oath to my dad. I'm here to collect. Finrod's people are not thrilled with him, joining in on this quest, but an oath is an oath. Finrod kind of, basically gives up his kingship and goes with Beren on his quest in service to this debt that he owes to Beren's dad. All right, so they set off. Unfortunately, they are captured by Sauron, and they are imprisoned at the unfortunately titled Isle of Werewolves. Like, if you're going to get, put up somewhere, probably the Isle of Werewolves, that's a bad place to be. And it is. And it has werewolves. In fact, it has Draugluin, the first werewolf in Tolkien's Middle-earth. All right. Meanwhile, back in King Thingol's land, Lúthien has a vision of Beren being captured by Sauron. Decides she must go help. But again, Daeron kind of gives her up, basically tells the king, like, she's going to try to leave and go help Beren. So King Thingol imprisons her, essentially, in this tall tree, like a cell in a tall tree. And there's kind of a Rapunzel vibe here, and that she grows her hair long, uses it as a rope to climb down, creates a magical cloak that if you witness the cloak, if you see it, you will fall to sleep. She puts the guards to sleep and escapes. Now, between the magic of her voice and the magic of her cloak, she's a very powerful magical force going out. Remember, she's half Maiar, so she's got this very, very potent abilities. So she's on her way to rescue Beren, her true love. All right. On the way, she runs afoul of some ne'er-do-well elves. It's the sons of Fëanor. I've mentioned them in a previous video. I think we're going to get derailed if I get too much in the weeds on that. But just so you know, she gets captured by some elves, and she is freed by their hunting dog. Their hunting dog is named Huan. And Huan is a very special dog. He's the size of a horse, for one thing. But he's been gifted by the Valar, and so he's an incredibly powerful dog, and he's prophesied to be immortal. He will only be killed off by the greatest of wolves. That's how he's pled, the prophecy to die. And he's also been given the gift of speech, but he can only speak 3 times. So he burns one of his 3 chances to speak to warn or to help Lúthien escape. Basically say, hey, look, I know how you can get out of here, and I'll go with you. So he Huan abandons the Sons of Fëanor and helps Lúthien escape. And together, she and her hunting hound now head off to rescue Beren and Finrod, who are still trapped at the Isle of Werewolves. All right, so Finrod and Beren had not gone alone. They'd gone with a couple of men. I think maybe 10 men, 10 elves had accompanied Finrod and Beren. They were all captured. So what Sauron does, he wants to know why they've been trying to sneak through his lands. He doesn't know who they are yet, and no one is giving up the info. So as a form of torture and interrogation, he sends a werewolf in one by one to eat an elf. Here's the buffet, the elven buffet, until the only two left are Beren and Finrod. And a werewolf is now coming to eat Beren, basically to force Finrod to talk. And so as the werewolf is about to kill Beren, who's chained up here in this prison in Sauron's Isle of Werewolves, Finrod uses all of his remaining powers and strength, and he breaks his chains and he fights off the werewolf, but in doing so, he suffers mortal injuries. And so he dies. But he has paid his blood debt to the House of Beor, because he keeps Beren alive. Meanwhile, Lúthien and Huan arrive. Major fight. Sauron sees through their disguises, and there's a major fight that goes on. And Huan kills a bunch of werewolves, and using her magic, Lúthien dispatches a lot. Sauron eventually comes in disguise as a werewolf, but they fight him back, and he is forced to leave. I should mention that at the time when Finrod and Beren get captured, Finrod has an epic battle, a wizard's duel essentially with Sauron. That's written. There's a big poem that Tolkien writes about it. It's really, really cool. But it's like their poems are through song, or the wizard's duel through song. So they're singing notes that are, they'll change shape. They change into snakes. It's a pretty cool wizard's duel. But Sauron is significantly more powerful than Finrod. As we see, Sauron is not significantly more powerful than Lúthien. So she wins the day. Rescues Beren. Obviously not Finrod. So now Beren is still determined. I'm going to get this Silmaril. I'm going to get this gem so I can marry you. You stay here. And Lúthien's having none of it. She's like, you're just going to get captured again. I'm going to have to save you again. I'm coming along. So the two of them and Huan head for Angband to get this gem so they can get married. Like, just elope at this point. But anyway, okay. So Huan uses his second ability to speak to tell them a plan. And his plan is, hey, look, I just killed Draugluin, the first werewolf, and Thuringwithil, a tough name to say, but it was it's a she. She was a vampire and Sauron's messenger. But Huan killed her as well. So he gives Lúthien and Beren their skins. It says their skins. I'm going to think it's a werewolf skin, and I think maybe Thuringwithil had a cloak that helped her turn into like a bat. So I think I guess he didn't skin the person and then say, put the skin on. That seems kind of But anyway, so they disguise themselves as a vampire and a werewolf to go through the lands near Angband, and they essentially get into Angband. There, Lúthien uses her song and her abilities to put all of the court of Angband to sleep, including Morgoth. That's how powerful she is. All right, now, Beren takes a knife. He's, Morgoth's like on his throne asleep. Beren is cutting Silmaril from his crown. Cuts the Silmaril off. Has the Silmaril in his hand. Decides, this is a bad moment for him, gets a little greedy. Like, I think I could get a second one. So he goes to cut a second gem off of the crown, but his knife breaks. And it falls and it cuts Morgoth's cheek. Wakes him up. All hell breaks loose. Now they've got to get the hell out of there. Morgoth summons what actually is the greatest wolf in the world, Carcharoth, this giant werewolf, to attack them. So Carcharoth runs them down. Also, Lúthien at this point is kind of spent from having put an entire castle to sleep. So her powers are not at their peak at that moment. So to try to buy some time, Beren holds up the Silmaril in his hand, and what he's trying to do is scare Carcharoth with the light of the gem. It's a brilliant light. So he shines it, he holds it in front of him. Carcharoth responds by biting off his hand. So it's like, oh, he's like Luke Skywalker moment. But so Carcharoth bites the hand off. It's holding the gem. The gem is now swallowed by Carcharoth. Problem is, Carcharoth has been bred by Morgoth. And so he is a tainted, impure spirit. And the Silmaril's power, one of the powers is it burns away impurities. So when he swallows this gem, it just starts burning his insides. It's killing him from the inside out. And he goes insane with pain, essentially. And so races out and for months thereafter is on the prowl, killing things out of rage and pain. Okay, that leaves Beren with one hand and a underpowered Lúthien to try to still get out of this Angband. Well, Huan comes to the rescue again. He communicates with the eagles, our handy eagles, who come rescue Beren and Lúthien and fly them to safety. All right, so they've escaped, but they don't have the gem. The gem is still in the belly of this big wolf that's going around killing everything. King Thingol is impressed, but again, haven't met the challenge yet. So Beren and Huan, with Thingol's blessing, basically with a company of men, set out to hunt down and kill Carcharoth to get the gem, but also to stop him because he's racing around killing everybody. They do hunt down Carcharoth, and a massive fight ensues. And Carcharoth is destroyed and the gem is cut out of him. But in the meantime, Huan and Beren are both mortally wounded. And Huan uses his last chance to speak to say farewell to Lúthien and Beren, and he dies with Beren's hand on his head, patting him on his head. So a sad end, a heroic end, but a sad one for Huan, and Beren passes away as well. Well, of course, Lúthien hears about this. She dies from grief. And that could be the end of our tale. That would be a really tragic Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. But no, there's more to this story. All right, so they're both dead. So they're both dead. Great. All right. There is a place called the Halls of Mandos. It's kind of a way station on the way to the afterlife. All right. It's Harry Potter at the train station, right? When he and Dumbledore have their conversation in the waiting room for the afterlife. All right. Mandos is one of the Valar, and he runs this place. Lúthien sings a song that's so beautiful. It moves Mandos to such a degree that he agrees to bring Lúthien and Beren back to life. And he allows them to live as mortals, so she gives up her immortality, but allows them to live as mortals together in Middle-earth. And so for a time, they come back and they have a very peaceful life together. They have a kid, a son, Dior, and they die in the same year again. So it's like when one dies, the other can't really survive without the other. It's kind of they're intertwined in that way. And I would say that the only other bit of information, the only other like violence that occurs, they have a very blissful life, and there's one little blip of violence in there, which is Thingol. Now he's got the Silmaril, right? They cut it out of Carcharoth. He's got it. He's like, you know what this would look good on is this necklace I've got. And he's got this magical necklace called the Nauglamir, the necklace of the dwarves. And so he's like, I want to put this gem onto this necklace and, you know, create this really cool item. So he summons some dwarven smiths to do that for him. Well, they see the Silmaril in the necklace and decide, we want that gem. And a lot of things happen, but basically they end up killing Thingol, and an army of dwarves comes in and loots King Thingol's treasury and runs off with it, including the Silmaril on the necklace. Beren hunts these dwarves down, kills all of them, and takes the Silmaril back, gives it to Lúthien. It is then passed down to their son when they pass away, but she has that necklace and the Silmaril thereafter. So yes, that's a fairly significant blip of violence in their peaceful life. But yes, they spend the end of their days together in bliss, which a lot of these fairy tales don't end that way. So yay, they lived happily ever after. Interestingly, just a little side note, Lúthien, the name that Beren calls her is as Tinuviel, Lúthien Tinuviel. Tinuviel is a word for nightingale or maiden of twilight. As it turns out, the nightingale, her mother, as I mentioned, was Amaya, Melian. Melian is associated with songbirds, so it kind of makes sense that her daughter would be nicknamed Nightingale. But anyway. So yes, that is the the broad stroke story of Lúthien and Beren. There is more to tell on that story, but I think that's the general arc of their love story. It is it's filled with, you know, werewolves and vampires and orcs and demonic creatures and rivers of flame and then, you know, oaths and love conquers all and all kinds of really amazing fairy tale stuff. So it would be very, very cool to see on either the big screen or perhaps on Amazon's Lord of the Rings series. So thanks so much. If you've got a topic you'd like to hear, please let me know. Be happy to talk about it here on our Dork Lord of the Rings segments. Bye, everybody.